I'm not sure if you are able to see the screen, but my presentation is divided into 4 parts. First, I would be presenting the basis for tagging, what has been the process for institutionalizing the CCET, and what are the various roles of the agencies and DBM and CCC for the tagging process. We will also be presenting the timeline on how the CCT process was developed and enhanced. We will also be sharing with you some information on the process for tagging your PAPs, and also introduce the quality assurance and review form. So these are just some of the basis for the development of the climate change expenditure tagging. If you would notice, the Climate Change Act, which was amended of 2009, which was amended in 2012, identified or specified the mandates of the Climate Change Commission, wherein we are tasked to coordinate and synchronize climate change programs in consultation with agencies. And at the same time, DBM also has a mandate that is specified or stipulated in the Climate Change Act as amended, wherein they are tasked to undertake the formulation of the annual national budget in a way that ensures that the appropriate prioritization and allocation of funds to support climate change related programs and projects in the annual program of government. So when this was released in 2012, we worked closely with World Bank, and World Bank came out with the Climate Public Expenditure and Institutional Review, of which there are some recommendations on how we would be able to tag the climate programs of government. Hence, in 2013, DBM and CCC issued a joint memo circular for national government agencies, state universities and colleges, and the GOCCs. It provides the guidelines for tagging climate change PAPs. And this was amended or revised in 2015. So in 2015, DBM and CCC again issued a joint memo circular for climate change. And for the subnational, we also have a local counterpart of the national budget process, or integrating climate change in the national budget process. We also have a counterpart for the local process. And hence, CCC, DBM, and DILG also issued a joint memo circular. But we will not be focusing on the subnational CCET process. We will just focus our attention or our presentation on the national process. So these are the roles based on the joint memo circular. Government agencies will have to comply with the joint memo circular by identifying and tagging climate change expenditures in their budget and submitting form BP201F form, or for NGAs and SUCs. And for GOCCs, they have a separate form. They are supposed to also fill out Form 712 and submit that to DBM. They are also tasked to uphold the quality of the submissions by documenting the basis for tagging using the QAR form, because it's the quality assurance and review form serves as a document for the CCC to review whether or not a specific PAP that was tagged by the agency has tagged it appropriately using the closest or the most appropriate typology. And also, this is a way for us to review also and evaluate the proposals of the agencies for climate change. And they usually prepare a presentation on the climate budget during the technical budget hearings. For DBM, they are tasked to evaluate the BP form 201F and the BP form 712 submission of the agencies, which they submit both to CCC and DBM, and also ensure discussion of the proposed climate budget during the technical budget hearings. The Climate Change Commission, on the other hand, we are tasked to review and analyze the BP201 F form, including the QAR. We are also tasked to evaluate and certify the QARs submitted by the agencies. We are also tasked under the Joint Memo Circular, particularly for the local CCET Joint Memo Circular. We are tasked to establish the HELPDESK to provide support in CCET, and we just expanded it to also include support systems for NGAs, SUCs, and GOCCs. And we are also tasked to strengthen capacities of NGAs, GOCCs, and SUCs for them to be able to tag their climate programs. Hence, we are doing this annual orientation for government agencies. This would give you a snapshot of the timeline of the national CCET development. So as mentioned a while ago, we issued the Joint Memo Circular. DBM and CCC issued the Joint Memo Circular in 2013, which provides information on the guidelines of the guidelines on how to tag, and also provides the typologies or a menu of programs to guide agencies in tagging their climate programs. DBM in 2014 issued a circular to tag the NEP and GAA because before we only used or we only tagged programs, climate programs during the agency request phase. But in 2014, DBM issued a circular to also tag the NEP and the GAA. In 2015, this was amended, and then in 2016, we also developed the National CCET Quality Assurance and Quality Assurance of the Climate Change Expenditure. This would, because before agencies would only provide figures for their climate tagged PAPs. But in order for DBM and CCC, particularly the CCC, to evaluate whether or not this particular climate tag PAP is really addresses climate change and provides climate change adaptation or mitigation programs, they need to explain it using the QAR form. So we developed the QAR form in 2016. And in 2017, climate change expenditures are now being reported in the budget expenditures and sources of financing, and this is provided to the legislative body as well. In 2018, both the national and local CCET are integrated into the NICDI's web portal of the Climate Change Commission. So I will be sharing with you later the web portal, and wherein we are already providing the information, the pertinent information on the national and local CCET. And in 2019, DBM issued a National Budget Memorandum 131, which mandates now the national government agencies to secure approval from the CCC of their respective QAR forms. Because before, in terms of the submissions of agencies, there are some agencies who would only tag their PAPs or provide information on their climate tag PAPs in the BP201F form, but they are not submitting their quality assurance and review form po. No? So in 2019, based on our discussion also with DBM, now po, the government agencies need to secure approval from the Climate Change Commission and ensure that we are able to review and assess also the submissions of the agencies using the QAR form prior to submitting this to the DBM via the OSBP. And in 2020, because of the pandemic, we actually delivered the first virtual orientation on national CCET to NGAs and GOCCs. And this is actually the first time also for DBM and CCC, as I mentioned a while ago, to work with DNR as well to provide an orientation on the harmonization of the CCET and the PCBRRP. for those who have attended po the virtual orientation, the materials are also uploaded in our NICD's website. And in 2021, we started we actually just finished conducting the deep dive sessions for the GOCCs and SUCs. So dati po kasi hindi po namin nagagawa po yung deep dive sessions. It's always been the NGAs. And then we started also inviting the GOCCs, but we have not really done a separate session for SUCs. So, and we really think that it's really important also to provide that kind of orientation for SUCs as well. So, we initiated the conduct of the training with SUCs, and DBM and CCC partnered with CHED to ensure that the SUCs would be able to know more about how to tag their climate programs. So for tagging, sorry, Joe, nawala ako. Hello? Okay, sorry. Akala ko nawala. Hello. Sorry. So for tagging the budget, there are two ways to identify your type of climate program. Does your PAP address adaptation or mitigation? So for climate change adaptation, this refers to the adjustment in natural and human systems in response to actual or expected climatic stimuli or their effects, which moderates harm or exploits beneficial opportunities. So these are just some of the PAPs that some of the agencies have tagged for adaptation. So some agencies po, they are tagging po their programs that are geared towards building flood defenses, or Pag-asa naman po is tagging their early warning systems as an adaptation program. DA has also identified that research for climate change resistant crops are tagged under adaptation, and for some agencies, they have identified coming up with policies or coming up with researches and capacity building initiatives geared towards designing systems and policies for climate change, and they are tagging this under the adaptation program as an adaptation program. For climate change mitigation, this is different po from climate change from disaster risk mitigation po, no. Mitigation po in the context of climate change, it refers to human interventions that would address or that would limit greenhouse gas emissions, or and removals by sinks of all GHGs po, no. So we have 6 greenhouse gases po that we are accounting for. So if an agency is implementing or would like to implement programs that would reduce emissions like carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, and industrial gases din po, such as perfluorocarbons, sulfur hexafluoride, and hydrofluorocarbons po. If you have measures that would or programs that would reduce the emissions of these greenhouse gases, you could tag this under mitigation. So mostly DOE and DOTR programs po are mostly tagged under mitigation. So if you have programs that would increase renewable energy, or the use of more energy efficient products, or coming up with policies for energy efficiency, promoting sustainable transport, or even waste management, because it reduces po methane and nitrous oxide. So these agencies are tagging their programs under mitigation. So this is actually the decision tree for CCET. So how do you tag po, no? The main question here is looking at your PAPs or your programs and activities and projects. Is the main objective or one of the main objective does the main objective or one of the main objectives explicitly articulate climate change adaptation or mitigation, or does it address climate change adaptation or mitigation? If yes, you tag the entire PAP budget as a climate change expenditure. If no, are there specific projects or activities within that PAP that would directly address climate change? If no, do not tag that particular PAP. If yes, you tag the proportion of the expenditure that is climate responsive. So that's basically the decision tree that the government agencies usually follow in assessing whether their PAP would address climate change or not. So ito po yung typology code manual po natin. If you would look into the screen, may codes po tayo, no? So it's either, the first one po, it's either A or M. It addresses the twin pillars po of addressing climate change. So if it's an A, it means that that particular typology is an adaptation typology. If it's M, it's a mitigation typology. Now, the first number corresponds to the 7 thematic priorities of the NCCAP. So if it's 1, you would see here that it corresponds to food security. If it's 2, it's water sufficiency, environment, 3 naman po yung environment and ecological stability. So meron po tayong 8 numbers po dito for the typology code manual po natin. And then the green one corresponds to sub-priority under each strategic priority. Number 4 po, it corresponds to the type of instruments used. So you have, is it a policy? Does it correspond to research and development? Is it focused on capacity building and knowledge sharing? Is it a specific action delivery? And then the last one po, yung orange or red, corresponds po to the specific activity. So you could see here, this is a sample of the typology code manual. So you could see here yung codes po natin. And it's very important for the participants to also look into the codes because even for, because this is what you would indicate also in your respective QARs, and even the even in the template po of the PCB-RRP, you are also asked to indicate the typology code of your specific PAP po, no? So both CCET and the RRP also indicates po yung typology code po natin that you have to include in your submission. So we have a separate one for adaptation and then also mitigation po. So you have specific typology codes for each activity. So this is just a sample of the BP201F form, no? That the agencies usually submit to the DBM. So if you only submit the BP201F if you have a climate change tag PAP. So kung wala po kayong climate change expenditures po, looking at your by reviewing your PAPs, kung sa tingin niyo po wala po kayong climate change expenditures din po doon, then you don't need to submit this form. And this could be found in the recently issued National Budget Memorandum 138, as mentioned po by USECTE and also ASEC Toledo. This was issued in January. It actually includes also the specific forms that you need to fill out. So this is the form that the agencies will need to fill out. Both SUCs and NGAs po, this is the form that they are using. And for GOCCs naman po, they are using a different form. So they have form number 711. Okay, and now we have the QAR po, no? Ito po yung tinatawag natin na CCET QAR form. Kasi po, if you would look at the previous forms, figures lang po ang makikita natin dito. It would be difficult also for the Climate Change Commission to do an assessment whether or not the PAP indeed addresses climate change. So we introduced po the CCET form. So yung CCET QAR form po natin. So ito po yung this is actually the template, and we just called out samples from the submissions of various agencies. So this section or this column corresponds to the PAP, which you usually identify also and you usually indicate in your BP201F. So ito po yung PAP po ninyo, and then the second column would correspond to the typology that's being used. So babalikan po natin. Sorry. Ito po yun, yung typology codes po natin. So ito po yung ilalagay nyo po dito sa second column. Now, looking at the main objective, it's possible po that the main objective is also your climate change specific objective. And it's also possible that the climate change component of a particular PAP is just a subset of the whole PAP that you have. Hence, it would be good to also indicate what would be the main objective and your specific climate change objectives po. And then for this column, you normally, agencies usually identify po the climate risks being addressed. So we know that in the discourse of addressing climate impacts, we identified the rising temperature, variability of precipitation, frequency and intensity of typhoons and sea level rise, providing risks din po that would lead to droughts and flooding. So yun po, ito po yung, this is where you would indicate po the climate change risks that you are addressing. The PAP, based on the PAP that you are enrolling po for climate change. And then what would be the last column po provides the information on what's the basis for identifying that this is indeed a climate program. So were you able to did you refer to the climate projections of Pag-asa, for instance, or are there maps or studies or research materials po for identifying po this particular PAP as a climate program, etc. So this one provides you the timeline for the CCET certification process. So we are actually aligning the timeline. This is based, the timeline is based on the timeline also of DBM kasi because the deadline for agencies to submit to DBM is May 11. So ideally po, before you submit po sana to DBM or i-enroll nyo na po yung inyong agency request or yung proposals nyo po sa OSBP, maganda po sana na na-review na po natin yung or na-certify na po natin yung inyong QARs. So ito po yung ating timeline. So the submission po of required CCT documents to CCC, we hope to receive it on or before March 25. And then we will give feedback po by March 26 hanggang April 16. But of course, there are already actually some agencies who have submitted to Climate Change Commission. So we are already starting the evaluation process for those agencies who have submitted na po, no? So yun po, of course, the earlier po namin na ma-receive yung submissions po ng agencies, then the earlier din po namin maibabalik at makakapag-provide po ng feedback to the government agencies po natin. And then there are some instances po based on the review wherein we needed to revise po, or like for instance, there is a more appropriate typology code po na pwedeng gamitin ng agency. So we are actually informing the agencies of the necessary revisions po. So the deadline for the submission of revised QAR is on April 30. And then the last day for us to issue the certification is May 7. This would allow the agencies po to time to secure po the approval of the QAR prior to the OSBP. Now, of course, hindi naman po ibig sabihin na hindi nyo pa po na ipapa-certify yung QAR, hindi po kayo makakapag-submit po sa OSBP. Of course, it's possible naman po that there are some agencies po na nakakapag-submit na po sa OSBP. It's just that if there are climate tag PAPs po, of course, magtatanong din po sa amin si DBM kung na-secure na ba ang approval po ng mga QAR. So it would be good also to ensure that if you think that that you have climate tag PAPs po, it's best to really ensure that that you are able to submit also the QAR for review po ng Climate Change Commission. So that's the timeline po for the CCT QAR certification process. Now, just the key analytics po natin, for 2021 GAA, if you recall lang din po yung opening remarks of Pom Noel, in 2020 we have a total of 242 billion pesos po worth of PAPs that are tagged to CCET. So it is actually a 16% increase po, no? Because for this year, ang figure po natin is actually 283 billion po. And of the 283 billion, 97% po dito ay climate change adaptation. And 3% lang po dito ay corresponds to mitigation PAPs po natin. Now, one of the limitations po currently of the system is that ang limitation po namin yun is paano po kapag this is actually one of the questions that we often receive. What if a PAP addresses both adaptation and mitigation? So how do we account for that? Unfortunately po, the system could only allow for a one PAP, one typology tagging. So you need to assess if what would be the main objective of that PAP. Will it address adaptation or mitigation? So isa lang po ang pwedeng piliin sa ngayon sa system. So ito po yung nagiging one of the challenges din po namin for having a more granulated analytics din po for this. But so far for most of the submissions po of the agencies, they are accounting po for adaptation programs din po. And 42 agencies have submitted their budgets to CCET. Hopefully po with the workshops that we've conducted ay tumaas pa rin po yung submissions po natin. Just to inform everyone as well, the Climate Change Commission po drafted a climate budget brief. So first time din namin na naglabas din po nito, and we are expecting din po that we would be doing this annually. So we have already the NEP level figures po, and then for currently po we are working on the GAA 2021 climate budget brief. So it provides you with some information on the programs that were tagged. What are the programs that were tagged? what are the programs that were tagged, and also uh, we also have a section po in this climate budget brief that talks about the harmonization with the PCB, and also yung gender mainstreaming din po. So may sections din po tayo on this. We will share with the agencies naman po yung GAA 2021 climate budget brief. So hopefully po matapos po namin siya ng April, because of course currently tinatapos po namin yung draft, and this would undergo review and approval po from both DBM and CCC po. So yon. So we are targeting April po to release yung figures po natin for this. And why do we tag? It actually provides information, it informs the government, it provides analytics po, no, data analytics of how much the government is allocating for climate change programs. And then specifically naman din po for the for the PCB RRP, it focuses on the priorities and programs po of the cabinet cluster, no. So the CCET naman po, what about the other agencies kasi that are not members of the cluster, but they are also providing or allocating resources din po, or programs for climate change. So the CCET would be able to provide that kind of data analytics din po, and hopefully this would create a policy dialogue to address climate change. It also promotes convergence. Like what I mentioned a while ago. So last year we started po the discussions with DNR to harmonize also the CCET with the PCB RRP, and it also provides us, or it would also enable us to facilitate our country's readiness din po to access climate financing, because sometimes this would also provide information po, no, on the priorities and programs of government for climate change. But if there are some needs din po, or priorities that are not being funded, then this could also serve as a basis then also for us to access climate financing as well. Okay, for the CCET help desk, just to introduce to you the CCET help desk po, no, we actually are the ones tasked to provide capacity building for agencies, LGUs, SUCs, and also GOCCs on CCET to help them identify their programs for climate change, and to guide them in the process of tagging their budgets. We are also tasked to evaluate the agency proposals for of climate change components against the existing typology po. So we have yun po yung ano namin po ngayon, ano, we are only focused on the joint memo circular po. So we are working on addressing also the improvements po, no, of the system. So sa ngayon po, we have the basis po for identifying the programs po would be based on the typologies that we have per the joint memo circular of DBM and CCC. We also review and approve if there is a possibility, there are, what if the agency proposes a climate program and they were not able to find an appropriate typology for their PAP. So we are also tasked to review and approve a new typology. So yung new typology proposals po of the agency is consistent with the UWACs of DBM. And together with DBM, we prepare climate budget briefs. So and reports based on the results of the CCET process. So for the help desk, we are lodged under the Implementation Oversight Division. So you could see here our email addresses, as well as our telefax and yung aming cellphone number. cellphone number actually yan ni Joe for national government agencies. And these are the members po of the help desk. For the national CCET po, and this would cover the SUCs, GOCCs, and NGAs. Our focal po is Joe, ang ating MC po for today. And for LGUs naman po, both, provinces, cities, and municipalities naman po, ang ating focal po doon ay si France, Mr. Dahumos. And the other members po natin, we have Ms. Aresa, Ms. Merilo, Ms. Pascua, and Ms. Mangulapnan. If you would look into the DIGITIZATION portal, ito po yung pinapakita po namin. We started providing the information po on the climate change expenditure tagging sa ating DIGITIZATION. So, stop share ko muna. Mag-share na lang po ako muna ng... ito pala. Ipapakita ko lang po muna yung ating... apologies po, no? Gusto ko lang po ipakita yung ating... I'm not sure if you are able to see now the screen, the sample climate budget brief. So ito po yung table of contents po niyan. And then as I mentioned po a while ago, meron po tayong section on harmonizing po the CCET with the program convergence budgeting. And we will be providing you information on this as well. Pero of course, may mas updated na po dahil meron na po tayong ginagawa na for GAA for 2021. So, yun po. And just to share with you our DIGITIZATION portal, I'm not sure if you are able to see. Ayun pala. Yan. Kung kita nyo na po, yan. Okay, so punta lang po kayo sa nicdis.climate.gov.ph, and then meron po tayo dito on CCET. And then you could see here some of the relevant toolkits for manuals and QAR forms. And then although we are still in the process of updating po yung visualization, this is where you would see po how much we are allocating po for climate change since 2015. So you could visit po the site. And then we will also be updating po yung CCET 101 kasi ito po yung materials po natin last year when we conducted the orientation po for agencies. So you could also view and download po the materials. And then in the left side po, you could download po yung mga materials po natin for this. So meron po tayong local primer, may typology code manual din po tayo. We also have the reference guide, etc. po. So let's go back to the presentation. Okay, this is where you could see again some information on the expenditure tagging. And we are also in the process of digitizing the CCET QAR, also in the DIGITIZATION portal. So hopefully po, we would be able to do a pilot testing po with selected agencies this month until April. So this is also in to support din po yung budget priorities framework po ng government, because in light of the pandemic, agencies are also encouraged to use online platforms din po, yung e-governance po natin. So for the Climate Change Commission, isa po sa mga tinitingnan po namin is to also digitize po yung QAR submission. So since this is still we are still finalizing this. So ito po kasing DIGITIZATION portal po natin ay naka-lodge po sa DICT. So we wanted to also thank DICT for accommodating a lot of our requests din po, no, for this. And we have a server po lodged sa DICT for our DIGITIZATION portal. So yun po yung aming digitization of the QAR form. So we would be pilot testing this with the agencies po. So hopefully po ay ma-use na din po ng mga agencies yan when they submit their QARs po to the Climate Change Commission. Now, of course, kung hindi pa po ninyo magagamit yung NICDIS portal, of course we could still receive po yung inyong mga submissions po via email. So, yun po. And of course, we're also, since last year, we are also discussing, we had several meetings also with PCW to try to link climate budgeting with gender mainstreaming because, of course, if you would go through the Climate Change Act, nakalagay po doon na dapat po ay we need to ensure po meaningful participation of women and men in the development po of climate programs, and this now includes CCET as well. And kanina po, based on our pre-assessment survey, 64% of our participants po have said that they have tagged their PAPs po. They have considered po, no, or they considered gender issues po in their climate tag PAPs. So we wanted to know more about it as well. So it would be, we are also encouraging the agencies to conduct gender analysis and collect and analyze sex disaggregated data. And of course, for the planning officers, we know po that the planning officers usually of the agencies are also the ones who are doing the GAD plan and budget. So reminder lang din po to use the Hagadaga checklist po for the GAD attributions in climate tag PAPs. So I think that's the last slide po. Thank you very much.